Book 8, Part 4 of Ovid's Metamorphoses. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information, or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Christina Vasilevsky. Metamorphoses by Publius Ovidius Naso. Translated by Brooks Moore. Book 8, Part 4. And at this point, the river said no more. This wonderful event astonished all. But one was there, Ixion's haughty son, a known despiser of the living gods, who, laughing, scorned it as an idle tale. He made a jest of those who heard, and said, "A foolish fiction! Achelous, how can such a tale be true? Do you believe a god there is, in heaven so powerful, a god to give and take away a form, transform created shapes?" Such impious words found no response in those who heard him speak. Amazed he could so doubt known truth, before them all uprose to vindicate the gods the hero Lelex, wise in length of days. "The glory of the living gods," he said, "is not diminished, nor their power confined, and whatsoever they decree is done. And I have this to tell, for all must know the evil of such words. Upon the hills of Phrygia I have seen two sacred trees, a lime tree and an oak, so closely grown their branches interlace. A low stone wall is built around to guard them from all harm. And that you may not doubt it, I declare again, I saw the spot, for Pythias there had sent me to attend his father's court. Near by those trees are stagnant pools and fens, where coots and cormorants delight to haunt, but it was not so always. Long ago 'twas visited by mighty Jupiter, together with his nimble-witted son, who first had laid aside his rod and wings. As weary travellers over all the land they wandered, begging for their food and bed, and of 1,000 houses all the doors were bolted, and no word of kindness given, so wicked were the people of that land. At last, by chance, they stopped at a small house, whose humble roof was thatched with reeds and straw, and here a kind old couple greeted them. The good dame Bacchus seemed about the age of old Philemon, her devoted man. They had been married in their early youth in that same cottage, and had lived in it, and grown together to a good old age, contented with their lot because they knew their poverty and felt no shame of it. They had no need of servants. The good pair were masters of their home and served themselves. Their own commands they easily obeyed. Now, when the two gods, Jove and Mercury, had reached this cottage, and with bending necks had entered the low door, the old man bade them rest their wearied limbs, and set a bench on which his good wife Bacchus threw a cloth, and then with kindly bustle she stirred up the glowing embers on the hearth, and then laid tinder, leaves, and bark, and bending down breathed on them with her ancient breath till they kindled into flame. Then from the house she brought a store of faggots and small twigs and broken branches, and above them swung a kettle, not too large for simple folk. And all this done, she stripped some cabbage leaves, which her good husband gathered for the meal. Then with a two-pronged fork the man let down a rusty side of bacon from aloft, and cut a little portion from the chine, which had been cherished long. He softened it in boiling water. All the while they tried with cheerful conversation to beguile, so none might notice a brief loss of time. Swung on a peg they had a beechwood trough, which quickly with warm water filled was used for comfortable washing. And they fixed upon a willow couch a cushion soft with springy sedge, on which they neatly spread a well-worn cloth preserved so many years. 'Twas only used on rare and festive days, and even it was coarse and very old, though not unfit to match a willow couch. Now, as the gods reclined, the good old dame, whose skirts were tucked up, moving carefully, for so she tottered with her many years, fetched a clean table for the ready meal. But one leg of the table was too short, and so she wedged it with a potsherd. So made firm, she cleanly scoured it with fresh mint, and here is set the double-tinted fruit of chaste Minerva, and the tasty dish of corner, autumn picked and pickled. These were served for relish, and the endive green, and radishes surrounding a large pot of curdled milk, and eggs not overdone, but gently turned in glowing embers, all served up in earthen dishes. Then sweet wine served up in clay, so costly, all embossed, and cups of beechwood smoothed with yellow wax. So now they had short respite, till the fire might yield the heated course. Again they served new wine, but mellow, and a second course, sweet nuts, dried figs, and wrinkled dates and plums, and apples fragrant, in wide baskets heaped, and in a wreath of grapes from purple vines concealed almost a glistening honeycomb. And all these orchard dainties were enhanced by willing service and congenial smiles. But while they served, the wine bowl often drained, so as often was replenished, though unfilled, and Bacchus and Philemon, full of fear, as they observed the wine's spontaneous well, increasing when it should diminish, raised their hands in supplication, and implored indulgence for their simple home and fare. And now, persuaded by this strange event, such visitors were deities unknown, this aged couple, anxious to bestow their most esteemed possession, hastily began to chase the only goose they had, the faithful guardian of their little home, which they would kill and offer to the gods. But swift of wing at last it wearied them, and fled for refuge to the smiling gods. At once the deities forbade their zeal, and said, "A righteous punishment shall fall severe upon this wicked neighborhood, but by the might of our divinity no evil shall befall this humble home. But you must come and follow as we climb the summit of this mountain." Both obeyed, and leaning on their staves toiled up the steep. Not farther from the summit than the flight of one swift arrow from a hunter's bow, they paused to view their little home once more, and as they turned their eyes, they saw the fields around their own engulfed in a morass, although their own remained. And while they wept, bewailing the sad fate of many friends, and wondered at the change, they saw their home, so old and little from their simple need, put on a new splendor, and as it increased it changed into a temple of the gods. Where first the frame was fashioned of rude stakes, columns of marble glistened, and the thatch gleamed golden in the sun, and legends carved adorned the doors, and all the ground shone white with marble rich. And after this was done, the son of Saturn said with gentle voice, "Now tell us, good old man, and you his wife, worthy and faithful, what is your desire?" Philemon counseled with old Bacchus first, and then discovered to the listening gods their heart's desire. "We pray you let us have the care of your new temple, and since we have passed so many years in harmony, let us depart this life together. Let the same hour take us both. I would not see the tomb of my dear wife, and let me not be so destined to be buried by her hands." At once their wishes were fulfilled. So long as life was granted, they were known to be the temple's trusted keepers, and when age had enervated them with many years, as they were standing, by some chance, before the sacred steps, and were relating all these things as they had happened, Bacchus saw Philemon, her old husband, and he too saw Bacchus, as their bodies put forth leaves. And while the tops of trees grew over them, above their faces, they spoke each to each. As long as they could speak, they said, "Farewell, farewell, my own." And while they said farewell, new leaves and branches covered both at once. The people of Tyana still point out two trees which grew there from a double trunk, two forms made into one. Old truthful men, who have no reason to deceive me, told me truly all that I have told you, and I have seen the votive wreaths hung from the branches of the hallowed double tree. And one time, as I hung fresh garlands there, I said, "Those whom the gods care for are gods, and those who worshipped are now worshipped here." He ceased, and this miraculous event, and he who told it, had astonished them, but Theseus above all. The hero asked to hear of other wonders wrought by gods. The Caledonian river god replied, and leaning on one elbow, said to him, "There are, O valiant hero, other things whose forms once changed as these have so remained, but there are some who take on many shapes, as you have, Proteus, dweller of the deep whose arms embrace the earth.